The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Okay.
Jason, I think you unmuted yourself during the theme song there. That was weird. Because all of a sudden I could hear you over the music. No judgment, just whatever. Okay, so yeah. Awkward ending aside, welcome to TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, Alexis Hejna, and tonight even though, it's November, we're going back into the Halloween spirit to talk about Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities, otherwise known as what we were hoping we were going to get with the Midnight Club and sadly didn't.
Pretty much.
Yes. All right. So joining me tonight, my fellow horror fanatics, Jason Teasley. Hello, Jason.
What's going on? Glad to be back talking about like you said, a little bit better anthology type series, and what we definitely expected out of our previous show that we did not get.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we also have Robert Winfree. Glad to have you back, Robert.
Happy to be back. I'm repping the Miskatonic Esoteric Order of Explorers tonight because
love it. I need a Miskatonic shirt so badly.
It was this or my Pan's Labyrinth t-shirt, and I found this one first.
Pan's Labyrinth t-shirt's probably buried in the bottom of the laundry hamper.
No, I think it's on the bottom of my clean pile.
Oh, you have a clean pile and a dirty pile. Okay.
Well, I have the clean pile and then I have the laundry basket.
Okay. All right. So, yes, this is an anthology series that Netflix brought out on October 25th. Every episode is introduced by Del Toro himself. This kind of has a very similar appeal to, I would say, Twilight Zone or Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that vibe.
Yeah, each episode has a different director. We have we're just going to go episode by episode, and we're going to talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, and what we thought were some of the scariest moments, what we thought were some of the blandest moments, and maybe just a few moments from some of these directors that maybe we did or did not know that, really could turn out something like this. We also have a comment here from Mr. John Guy. Aw, thanks a lot, man.
Hey, any amount of time you can spend with us is legally can be used against you, I'm pretty sure, but we're very grateful for it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this may contribute to possible torture aesthetics, but
we have not been sanctioned by the Geneva Convention just yet.
We're well on our way.
What do we have to do to get that low?
Have Pat on more shows.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You said it, not me. I didn't think you were going to go there, man.
No, Pat doesn't qualify. No, like, if we wanted to, I'm not going to say it. I'd hurt too many feelings. I know what I would do. Like, because I've thought about this an occasional bit of seriousness. Like, if you want to go enhanced interrogation techniques, I know what I would do. Let's put it that way. I know who I would have on, and I know what we would talk about. And at the end of it, we'd all try to kill each other, but it could be used for that purpose.
So, Loki.
Indeed.
I've been determined to find some way to at least start working more of those clips in. I feel like I'm disappointing Mark if I don't. All right, so the first episode is Lot 36. This is directed by Guillermo Navarro. This is based on an original short story by Del Toro himself. Apparently, he got the idea to write this after his family's storage unit was mistakenly sold, very similar to what happens to the woman Amelia in this. So we have Tim Blake Nelson as our lead character, who I have mentioned on multiple podcasts. I honestly believe can do no wrong as a character actor. I love seeing him come on screen.
He's pretty much this generation's Harry Dean Stanton.
I think it's a good comparison. And he plays a very xenophobic right-wing veteran, and we all know someone like this guy. You know, we all know somebody who listens to this kind of stuff who, yes, went overseas, fought, has to find some way to work that into every argument. Incredibly xenophobic, very right-wing, listens to right-wing media, doesn't want to talk to anyone else who he doesn't think is on his level, thinks that his injury and what he's done has pushed him above. So he purchases the rights to an abandoned storage room. They know very little about it, but they do see that the gentleman who previously owned it visited that place every day, had a very bizarre way of entering. He hopped forward and hopped back. I'm assuming that was like some kind of superstition thing for good luck.
Yeah, kind of like a ritualistic type thing.
Mm-hmm.
After once we find out what's going on, could have been some kind of ritual type thing.
Or it could have just been superstition for good luck.
Batshit crazy.
We also find out that he had also, this is something he does frequently, is that he purchases a lot of these looking for.
This is one of his jobs.
Yeah.
This is a real thing people do. If you default on the payments to your storage unit, then the owner of the storage unit lot auctions off whatever's inside to people who come root through it looking for stuff.
Yeah, like they said, sometimes they find, family heirlooms, gold, bearer bonds, things like that, and occasionally you find crap. Or literal crap, as the guy says.
Yeah.
Mostly it's crap.
Yeah.
But you do on occasion find stuff that's really, really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that happens. It happens often enough. I mean, for a while there was a joke that the economy was so bad that there were 3 different shows expressly about the buying of abandoned storage units going on television at the same time.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Okay, so we also have him interacting with a Mexican immigrant named Amelia. Like I said, similar to what Del Toro went through. Her family's lot is mistakenly sold. Apparently, the notice about the lack of payment got sent to the wrong address. She didn't get it, and her lot was purchased by Nick. And she talks to him, and she's like, "Look, can I go into that and see if there's anything in the way of like my family's letters or photos? Those are useless to you. Just let me get my stuff." And Nick very cruelly says no. And he hands her the padlock from it saying, "Here, this is yours. You can have that back." Giant middle finger.
Yeah.
So he goes in and he started looking through stuff to sell. And he finds a German seance table with 3 volumes on demon summoning. So that's something kind of interesting there. And I love when he brings it to the occult specialist, and she looks at it and goes, and he's like
you do.
Well, apparently his usual pawn dealer he was going to take it to him, but one of his partners on this, who works at the storage lot unit, says, "Here, this person's a little bit better. Take it to her." And I love his reactions, like, it's like seance, like a Ouija board or something. And she goes, "A little more serious than that."
Just a touch.
Just a touch. And the 3 volumes are actually about summoning and confining a demon to hell or to earth. So we get another guy in named Roland, who is apparently an expert in the occult. And he says that if there's a 4th book, and if they've got the 4th book, if they got all 4, they got the complete collection, then this is going to be over $300,000. Nick, as we see, owes a ton of money to somebody, to the point that some guy just smacked the crap out of his car for him, destroyed his windshield and his front window.
That kind of hurt my soul a little bit. Like, it didn't have to hit the front windshield, man. That just really complicates everything. You take out the side window, fair play. You take out one of the rear view mirrors, again, that's fair play. You don't have to hit the windshield. That's just a joke.
Gotta hammer that point home.
You already hit the guy in the head with the hammer. I mean, I feel like if you go for the head trauma, then the windshield is overkill. If you go for the like either or, you only need one of those.
So they find a secret room built into this storage unit. They had earlier commented that some of the storage units seemed like they were smaller than the others, and it's because there was this secret panel put in. They go in and they find it's a desecrated body of I may have misunderstood, but I think it was the body of the sister of the old man who died and left the storage unit.
Yes, but minor point of the English language. I assume you meant desiccated.
Did I say desecrated or yeah? Okay,
You said
I'm sorry. I
desecrated.
can't read.
That's okay.
There's no R in that word.
Those are just those are just two very different things. It's an easy mistake to make.
And her body is in well, I'm just going to call it a devil's trap. Thank you, Supernatural. And it's holding a demon inside of it. And of course, Nick's not going to listen to the expert who's with them, walks over the devil's trap, moves the salt, and literally all hell breaks loose. And as Nick tries to leave, he finds the door is locked. And who's outside but Amelia? And when he asks if she can open the door for him, well, karma's a bitch. Let's just put it that way.
Yes. And the visuals of this, because you get this, I call it, when I was watching it, it was the Resident Evil-esque monster, just like totally tracking him through the storage unit, which I thought was really good for tension-wise, simply because you had that, the visual of the creature, of the demon, was very intriguing, the route they went with it, and just because it was menacing and would just, he could not escape it, and just to the little revenge factor when she throws the lock back on the door as he's trying to get out was great.
Absolutely.
Having spent a lot of time in storage units, because I moved around a lot as a kid and my dad had way too much stuff. So I've spent a lot of time in storage lots, and I've been in some of those places where like you could get lost. Like this feels like a maze. Everything feels it feels the same, and there's the timer for the lights. Oh, that almost gave me flashbacks. Like, oh yeah, lights on a timer. That's a thing. They get the aesthetic right for this particular episode. It feels very kind of gritty. It feels very, grungy. I kind of appreciated the fact that Nick gave absolutely no care to the theoretical supernatural elements of this. Like, because, and I mean, let's be honest here. If any of us are in that position where this weird German guy is like, yeah, here's all this weird supernatural occult stuff that might be going on, we're not going to give that too much consideration. That changes when you get to the room with like a body in the middle of it. Like, okay, maybe we should. At that point,
it's like, okay, dude, it's like, I understand not believing in ghosts. I understand you're a skeptic. There is a body on a devil's trap with the head missing and tentacles coming out of the head.
Yeah, again, that's the point when you start paying attention. But everything up until that point, when these people are clearly like they think they're imparting some significant wisdom or deep secrets, and this guy just does not care. Like, no, you attached a dollar amount to this. I live in the real world, so.
Yeah, I knew he was going to break the barrier, but I thought he was just going to get too excited. He was like, there's the book. And then he makes a lunge for it before, what was the other guy? Roland stops him and pulls him back, but he's already broken the tape, as it were. But no, he warns him, he's like, don't do that. And he's like, screw you, I want the book. And he keeps walking. It's like, dude, common sense. Come on.
Yeah.
Hey, but money talks, though. And
demons in the face of humans talk, too.
Well, yeah, but...
Sort of.
I mean, theoretically, this could have been, because I guess you could say it like this, is you could have had the line of thought of it's something valuable that, you have the aesthetics to make it look like it's something more than it's not. I guess that's kind of like the, like a deterrent, but you have skepticism because you don't see this interaction. So, I understand the skepticism of it, but also I kind of err on the side of caution. And if I see some, I'm going to be hesitant, at least a little hesitant, to try to figure out what the hell's going on.
All right. Well, our next one, Graveyard Rats. This is directed by Vincenzo Natali, who I didn't know this is actually a longtime player in horror. This is the guy who gave us the first Cube movie, gave us Splice. This is based on a short story by Henry Kuttner. This involves Masson. I thought it was Mason at first, but he pronounces it Masson with a French accent. He's a grave robber who actually owns the graveyard. Again, same situation as Nick. He owes money. So he's been trying desperately to rob various graves. He finds out that we got an old guy who's being buried with not only several gold teeth. This takes place way back in the day when it was actually like gold in the teeth. But he's also being buried with, I think it's like a scepter or a sword.
It's a sword. It's a saber that was gifted to him by the King of England. So we're, in terms of the timeline here, we are maybe like I said, it's on one of the graves, isn't it? The year that this takes place.
It's stylized. It's definitely stylized.
We're dealing like early 1900s at the latest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Masson has also been having trouble robbing various graves because of the rats. He goes on this very big, very well done speech. I should add that this actor, David Hewlett, played Worth in the first Cube movie. And he is really good in this. He gives this very passionate speech about how terrified he is of rats and how they keep showing up in his business. He's like, well, yeah, dude, you own a graveyard and you're a grave robber. You're going to come across a bunch of freaking rats. So, old guy with valuable sword dies. Masson tries to rob him, only to find out the rats have literally drug the corpse out of the coffin into the series of tunnels. And this is where I actually give full credit to Natali, because this was the one that scared me the most. It's like, this is a short that somehow captures claustrophobia, fear of being buried alive, and fear of rats. And just all three of those just really are terrifying concepts. And he somehow works all of them not over the top. Well, the rodents of unusual size is a little over the top, but I still thought it was very well done. And you have so much of this of him crawling through the tunnels, trying to, psych himself up, even though he hears the rats and he's terrified of them. He is stuck in this confined space, knowing that the object or the creature that he fears the most is probably either right behind him or right in front of them. And he is driven solely by greed and the need to survive. And I really, really just scared the crap out of me. I'm going to be fully honest.
Yeah, this one was one that was very, very high on my uneasy meter, I guess you could say. Simply, I'm not a fan of claustrophobia. I stuff like that, like the Descent. Descent, I love simply because of the nature of the atmosphere and the claustrophobia, the stuff like that. I think that panic is something that we can all relate to, being confined in a and then you throw rats on there. Rats are probably some of the smallest yet most fear-inducing animals that you can come across. And they get a bad rap because the bubonic plague and everything. But yeah, the way they portrayed his utter fear was something that I really enjoyed. The tone and just the fear that it brought onto him was something that really resonated. Amber could not watch that episode. She was about halfway through it and she noped out. And she was like, look, I can't do rats. I'm not cool with rats. Just can't do it. I'm noping out on this one.
See, rats in general don't scare me as long as they are where they belong. There's
Right.
there's a joke that I've often made, when people say they're afraid of clowns. And I go, well, if I see a clown at a circus or a carnival or a kid's birthday, no, I'm not going to be scared of that clown. I'm walking down the street and I see a clown just on the end of the street. It's like, yeah, that's going to scare the crap out of me because that's not where they belong. Same with rats. I see rats in the ground or something. It's like, yeah, that's their home. I see a rat run across, my floor. I'm like, no, that's where I'm going to scream.
Well, rats are mean. That's the other thing people have to remember about, especially feral rats. Like, they're
Mhm.
real mean creatures.
Yeah.
But yeah, this, like I said, and again, the fact that they even worked in being buried alive. We have a scene where Masson, he's terrified because he wants to turn around and, not go down these tunnels. But we have this very brief kind of fantasy nightmare scene where he sees himself being locked into a coffin by his debtor, or the guy he owes money to.
Yeah.
And when he escapes, he climbs back into, he thinks that he sees the light at the end of the tunnel. It's the light reflecting off of a plaque on the empty coffin.
Yep.
And that, being buried alive, actually, that's one of the things that scares me more than anything. And that scene of him getting in there and realizing he's trapped, even before suddenly all the rats swarm him, was so scary. And of course, we got that gross out thing at the end, which... scary, very over the top, but you know what? An over the top scare is still pretty damn good. Of the rats coming out of his body. Ugh. Oh God, ugh. Squirm, major squirm.
This one does certainly does a good job of trying to lean into the horror aspect of the show. This is a nice rebound for this particular director, whose most recent film was The Regrettable in the Tall Grass.
I liked In the Tall Grass.
Never even heard of it.
It's on Netflix. It's based on a Stephen King story. Like
is it a Stephen King story or a Joe Hill story?
Might be one they wrote together, if memory serves. The setup is interesting for that. That works better as a story than it does as a movie. Like, the actual short story is pretty darn good.
You've read it?
Yeah. Because I was so unimpressed with the movie, I went, wait a minute. There's no way these two guys produced something this bad. So again, the setup's interesting, and the first 30 minutes of the movie are pretty good. Like, there's a genuine sense of eeriness to it, but it just fails the longer it goes.
Okay.
This is much more a return to form for him. I mean, he's directed several episodes of Hannibal, which I love Hannibal.
Who doesn't?
Weirdos. I'm convinced weirdos don't like that show. The acting here is good. The costuming is very good. I like that they keep a lot of things unknown. That just hinted at, like, yeah, there's rumors about why there are giant rats, why the rats here are worse than the rats elsewhere, but we don't know why exactly. He stumbles across one of their temples to some kind of an elder god, and it's never
elder god that looked an awful lot like the monster that we saw in the previous episode.
A lot like it, yeah. But it doesn't go into it any more than that. So there's a lot that is left on the table as far as that goes. And I kind of appreciate that when it's a deliberate choice by the creative team to leave questions. It's good. And like you mentioned, the lead actor, hats off to him, does a tremendous job.
Yeah. The scene where he comes into the coffin and realizes that he is buried alive now, because you see him just saying, "Oh, Jesus Christ, thank you, I repent." And he really thinks he's, home safe. And when he climbs into that coffin and realizes, no, you're going to die there, the panic that sets in, how badly it affects him, is truly terrifying. So, all right, moving on to episode 3, The Autopsy. This is directed by David Pryor it's a teleplay by David S. Goyer, and based on a short story.
And it feels like it. From a writing perspective, it feels like it.
This is an interesting one because it is insanely dialogue heavy. It is extremely prologue heavy. There is so much going on in this that, for the most part, would not translate well to a film whatsoever. Now, there are parts I think they actually do pull that off, but I do not credit that to Goyer. I credit that to F. Murray Abraham, and I believe it's Luke Roberts who plays Joe Allen. There is a chemistry between these actors while they're talking about. But anyway, so we have Dr. Carl Winters, who is a pathologist, has been asked to perform autopsies on several miners who died recently. One of them, Joe Allen, caused an explosion while carrying some kind of mysterious object. We don't know what it is. This is not a short for anyone who is squeamish, because we get to see a lot of the autopsies. This is a very body horror based
Yes.
short. There is a lot of very visceral blood and guts. I mean, literally, he's cleaning out the bodies. The main purpose is, the sheriff mentions that they need to essentially find proof that these guys died not directly because of the bomb. Otherwise, the insurance companies are not going to fork over money to the families, which is horrible. But if you read up about coal mining incidents, you know it is sadly very common. It's a horrible thing for families that have to go through.
It is, and it's a bureaucratic nightmare, because much as we'd all like to throw nothing but blame at the insurance companies in those cases, and I'm not here to necessarily stump for the insurance industry, mind you, but that is a dangerous profession, and God bless the people who do it, because you keep everything running. But it is a dangerous profession, and when you're dealing with the liability that comes along with that, there is a degree of due diligence that has to come along with. If you paid out every claim to everyone who dies on the job in that instance, your insurance company will rapidly no longer be in existence. So it's kind of a scummy thing. It always feels scummy, but it's not entirely unwarranted.
And coming from a pretty much coal mining driven region here in West Virginia, I see this often. Actually, a real quick story. I actually had my underground coal mining card, was driving to my first night underground, and there was an explosion at the mine I was supposed to be working at.
Oh my God.
And it
Could you
decided,
quit talking about how you almost die every time you're on my show?
I'm like a cat with 9 lives. So yeah, that ended. I never seen one underground shift. That I decided that I would not be a coal miner, and I went into a totally different field. But yeah, it's more common than not. I mean, mining is a highly dangerous profession. That's why it's one of it's a risk reward profession. You get a really nice payday, but you're putting your life on the line and your health on the line. So that's where it comes in, and it's something that people don't understand. But once you kind of break it down, it is terrifying underground. Just let me know. I will tell you, I have been underground because I've had to do demonstrations for the company I used to work for. Had disaster like shelters. I had to go underground and do demonstrations with them. Being underground is scary because it is a weird, cold silence.
Mm-hmm.
It is terrifying.
Definitely. And like I said, I think we could actually just talk for the next hour about coal mining, but we do need to move on. That's not what our listeners are here to hear us discuss. So Dr. Winters is examining these corpses. Again, this is very squeamish. We see him actually cutting the ribs out of these bodies.
What you have to do.
Yeah, again, it's like, this is nothing if you're used to studies of anatomy and such, but if you get squeamish about blood, do not watch this episode, for the love of all that is good and holy and covered in chocolate. He finds 2 of the bodies have their organs are drained of blood, and it's very weird, and he's starting to wonder what happened when, lo and behold, the body of Joe Allen reanimates. Turns out that when this other guy went out to see a meteor shower, he got done infected with an alien parasite.
Like you do.
Of course.
Except he didn't get cool superpowers in a black suit.
No.
Well, this is a parasite, not a symbiote.
Well,
you had to say that, didn't you?
I did. They're fundamentally different relationships between organisms.
All right.
The casual fan will get the reference. Not everybody is you, Mr. Wizard.
The diehard fans will know that to check off that spot on their bingo card, because it's been a while since we've made a Venom joke. But
Morbius did kind of take its place in that lexicon for us, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
So again, there is a very long scene of the corpse possessed by this alien talking to Dr. Winters, and I am not going to go through all of it because we do not have time, and there is a lot of details. But the short version is these aliens are blind and deaf. And when they enter our bodies, they can see, they can hear, they can smell, they can taste, all that stuff. And yeah, they're parasites. They are essentially taking over us because they want our senses. The body of this poor soul, who, this is actually kind of terrifying. He mentions, oh, he's still alive. He's still awake in here. He can't stop me from cutting the body open to get my parasite body out of him. Can we just have like 5 seconds to comment on how terrifying that idea is? The idea of you being forced to watch through your own eyes, unable to stop someone slicing up your own body.
It's interesting.
I feel like there was at least one Animorph story that dealt with this. Because this thing's basically a yerk.
Yerk. Oh my god. Now I'm having flashbacks to the 90s again. I have not thought of the Animorphs series in ages, but you're absolutely right. It's like a yerk. Anyone who wasn't around in the 90s, Animorphs was one of the big young adult sci-fi series, which apparently Robert and I were huge readers. But anyway, so there's a few moments before the parasite can get into Winter's body, and he knows that he's got to think fast. So he blinds himself, stabs his eardrums,
blinds and deafens,
slices his artery, and then uses the blood to write a message to the sheriff on his body, essentially saying, play the tape, because thankfully Winters, did think ahead before things went straight to hell, and hit play on his tape recorder, and it says, play tape, burn body. And that's where it leaves off. Again, this is a very dialogue-heavy short. Most of it is Winters he's either talking to the sheriff, he's talking into his tape recorder, or he's talking to the alien. And it does drag on, but I do give credit that F. Murray Abraham, who I don't think anyone here is going to argue, is one of the greatest actors ever. I think he really does a great job with how he's able to hold the scene through the dialogue. I actually do like the scenes of him just talking into the tape recorder, discussing his theories. Is like, I wonder if this is what happened. I think he carries it.
Yeah. This episode lives and dies on that. So he does a good job. Props to the practical effects on the creature. They could have easily done this thing as nothing but CGI, and while there are CGI components to it, they constructed a creature that definitely has some alien vibes to it. So yeah, again, the influence there is not a bad one, but that thing's a little bit creepy, and not just in its personality, just in its design. In its personality, yeah, it's pretty darn creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's this episode. I thought, to me personally, it drug a little bit. I think you could have cut down take some time out of it because it was so heavy on dialogue and stuff. But the dialogue helped carry it along. I think, like you said, the creature, the alien itself, I liked the design of it simply because it wasn't heavily CGI'd. A lot of practical effects went into it, which gave it that more organic feel, rather than you can disconnect. I know, myself, I know Robert has the problem with it. Bad CGI that takes you completely out of a moment.
I really do.
And but the practical aspect of it kind of held your attention, because that conversation goes on for quite some time, because it's like an exposition dump, and you have to have something visually and to draw you in to pay attention to the little the little details that's being dumped onto you, and explaining how we got to this point. So the monster was very well designed. This is probably one of my favorite creature designs of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked it. It's kind of fell in the middle ranking wise, but like I said, I mean, you could probably took about 5 minutes out of it and improved it a little bit. Just kind of streamline the dialogue a little bit more and not be so wordy in some places, but it was fine.
Okay, so moving on to The Outside. This was directed by Anna Lily Amirpour, if I'm pronouncing her name right. Best known for her feature film debut, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, self-described as, quote, the first Iranian vampire spaghetti western.
If you've never seen that movie, go out of your way to find it. It's really good.
That's what I've heard. But unfortunately, I think we were kind of in agreement that this was probably the weakest of the films in this series. This is based off of a webcomic by Emily Carroll. The focus is on Stacy, played by Kate Micucci, who is I love that Wikipedia calls her a seemingly unattractive and awkward woman, because if you've ever seen Kate Micucci in real life, she's adorable. She is the cutest little thing, but they really went out of her way to make her feel unattractive. She's got the worst haircut imagine. She's got one of her eyes is a little off. It looks like that she's got like a swollen eyelid or whatever. She's got kind of bad teeth.
Her teeth are crooked. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot that there's a lot that goes into the kind of just posture and the way she carries herself, that there's a little bit extra on her nose. Like her nose has a little bit of a bridge to it that's not natural. And it really is an interesting kind of observation that when she comes out of the goop at the end and feels pretty, they didn't actually change that much.
Yeah, it was all about the main thing was the haircuts.
It's really small. It's really small stuff that gets changed.
Mm-hmm.
But again, her hair gets cut, her teeth get straightened, and her eyes don't go cattywampus anymore. And that's it. That's literally it. That's not a whole lot to change about a person, but for some reason, that's enough for her perception and for the perception of those around her to change.
Yeah. Before I saw the end, I remember looking at her. It's like, sweetie, you need a haircut, better fitting clothing, and confidence. That's all you need.
I'm going to throw this reference out, and you guys will get it. This was basically a 90s teen comedy, like She's All That, where you just take the glasses off, take the ponytail down, and she's beautiful. I mean,
glasses off, ponytail down, axe in the husband's back. Yeah, just standard stuff.
Pluck the eyebrows, and you're good.
Yeah, I mean, get rid of the unibrow. Put a nice dress on, let the hair down, take off the glasses, you're golden. And that's what this felt like. But there was one really uncomfortable scene for me.
You want me to do the description of the plot and then cut to you? Okay.
Yeah.
So Stacy works at a bank with these, well, they're described as very beautiful women by 80s standards, I guess, but they're insanely vain, full of themselves, wearing gaudy clothes. They talk about how they're, planning on, getting a facelift and then divorcing their husbands and how they're going to leave them penniless and stuff. It's annoying as hell. But she gets invited to a Christmas party with, I guess she's kind of the, queen bee of the bank, who gives all of them a promo box of Aloe Glow. We all lived through the 80s and 90s. Remember those late night infomercials for beauty products?
All kinds of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When people forget how long those things ran. Like for the removal of, what do you call it? Like paid programming?
Paid programming.
The removal of paid programming from television is a relatively new phenomenon within the history of television. When I was horribly depressed and suffering from insomnia even like in high school or into my early 20s, so we're talking early 2000s, like even like aiming towards the start of the 2010s, you can find paid programming if you're up late enough and you're bored enough and you're just desperate for something to you know, be there and keep you company. You could find, hey, here's, you know, another infomercial for the this cooking buddy that you can get, or
Cooking buddy, weight loss buddy, beauty buddy,
Girls Gone
organizing
Wild.
buddy.
the cutlery corner. There was one that was for a while that was just guys who would sell knives of
Mm-hmm.
various varieties.
ShamWow.
ShamWow. Oh
Wow.
yeah, ShamWow.
OxyClean.
OxyClean. Yeah,
My
you could.
favorite, like I said, my favorite, Girls Gone Wild.
Yeah, they would
Just-
have paid programming for that, depending on where you were. Yep,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah. So should they all get this
Pre-internet days.
pre-internet, exactly. So they all get this promo box of Aloe Glow. It's this new beauty lotion thing, whatever, that's sold on late night infomercials. And Stacy puts it on and finds out it gives the poor girl a rash. I guess she's got
That's
an allergic reaction to it.
That's a pretty bad rash too. Like that's not
Insane.
a little rash.
Yeah, no, her whole skin is breaking out in red hives.
Yeah.
And she goes home, but then she stays up late watching. She watches TV, watches the infomercial, and I was dying laughing at Dan Stevens playing the spokesman for Aloe Glow. This is the guy who played the Beast in the live action Beauty and the Beast movie. And he just speaks with this. First of all, he's British, but he ups the pompousness of his accent so much.
He almost changes it from British to that kind of like Scandinavian or Eastern European
Yeah.
British. Like there's this weird hybrid accent that is, it's a touch British, but it leans heavily into what we kind of Americanized think Eastern Europeans and especially like Northern Eastern Europeans sound like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the most annoying voices and accents that exists. I don't know why people use it. I mean, if you come by it naturally, then fair play. But I don't know why people affect it.
Credit to the hair and makeup department as well. Stevens has very bright blue eyes. It's one of his most promising characteristics when he does movies. But they also give him bleach blonde hair that looks like it would probably, break wood if you snapped it over his head. I don't want to know how much hairspray was in that stupid thing.
All of it. Like,
yeah, and
this guy makes Homelander's hair look natural.
but the way between with the bright blue eyes, the white suit, and the bleach blonde hair, and the way he stares at you through the TV is very unsettling. So credit to how they made him look through that.
Yeah.
So Stacey goes out, finds the commercial, and she starts, I guess, hallucinating that the Aloe Glow guy is talking to her. And she's like, I don't want to use this. It gives me a rash. She's like, no, that means it's working. Keep using more. So she starts using more. Her husband, who is the most supporting guy in the world, very
Yes.
kind. I think he's either a cop or he works for the sheriff's department. Very.
I think they mentioned he was in dispatch. It might have been.
Okay.
So either way, yeah, he works for them. I was so worried they were going to make him a jerk.
Exactly.
Like that was my big fear once that dynamic we kind of see, oh, she's married and here's this guy. And I was waiting for him to just be a dismissive, uncaring, kind of jerk. And thankfully he is not. So good on the writing team for that one. You created a husband in this scenario who was not a jackass and we could all kind of root for. So thank you.
Definitely, to the point that her favorite hobby is taxidermy. Their house is filled with dead animals. She gives Gina a freaking taxidermy duck.
It's a
Thinking it
nice
would be a
mallard
kid-
too, by the way.
Oh yeah, it was very
Yeah.
well done. And he is fully supportive. He walks in and she's freaking, sewing up this dead
Sewing it back
animal
up.
in their kitchen. And he's like, oh wow, you're doing a really good job on that. He's so supportive. I love it.
And I think that adds to this episode, being the supportive husband, because you have such the stark contracts compared to the other ladies in the bank that have these horrible marriages and talk down about their husband. To have him being a supportive husband and to see where it goes is kind of really, really interesting, because you see the entire character dynamic change and just the interactions. Like once she comes down from the bath, after she does what she does, in the most disturbing scene I've ever seen on television. Um, and you see her slowly start descending into this madness, and like she just jabs that, and he's like, "No, you're beautiful just the way you are," and she just like takes that like 12 blade and just shoves it right in the middle of his forehead, and you're like, "Okay, well that's not going to kill him. That's going to leave a mark. That's going to hurt.
That's
It's
probably
not,
like that's not going to get through the skull.
no, it's going to hurt. It's going to
It
be
probably got lodged
superficial
in the
damage."
skull. The skull's
Yeah.
thicker than people realize, so it's
Yeah.
probably like hit the bone because it's in there pretty deep. But I don't think it hit any gray matter.
No, and then so like, okay, that's not going to kill him.
The poor
then
guy,
just-
like he doesn't even get mad about it. He's like, "Why'd you do that?" "Oh yeah, I'm bleeding."
Yeah.
"Oh boy."
Can you
Should
go
I
give me
pull-
a towel,
Should I
honey?
pull it out? Should I pull it out? Oh yeah, I'm bleeding. It's getting on my glasses. Yeah, but the husband aspect of this, I liked simply because he was the supportive. He was the stark contrast of the basic husband role that you see set up by the other women.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so the Dan Stevens tells her to keep using more of the lotion, even though it's not getting any better. It's clear. And yeah, her husband keeps Keith, he keeps saying, it's like, honey, you need to stop using this. You need to go to a doctor. And again, he's not belittling her. He is not talking down to her. He's genuinely worried. And he keeps talking about all the things he loves about her, which are inner beauty things. He loves how funny she is, how kind. He loves how great she is with how much she loves her animals and how good she is at her taxidermy. I especially love the line. It's like, you stay up to watch scary movies, even though you get scared and you look away. It's like there's something very cute about that.
That reminded me of Mark. Reminded me of Mark.
Just a touch.
You mean so? At this point, are you saying that I'm the girl who's going to come in and just axe him in the back of the head one of these days?
I would not put it past you. There may be a psychological break. I've heard some of the arguments. There may be that psychological break where Mark catches an axe to the back of the. No, actually, it would be Mark taking an axe to you, wouldn't it? No, you're right. Good axe, Mark.
Shall we divert the conversation to discuss which one of the Radulich and Broadcasting members are most likely to kill our boss?
My money's on Robert.
If we're limiting
That's the
this,
safe
if
bet.
we're limiting this to on-air personnel, I probably would be the safest bet.
Okay, fine. Good to know.
Least likely, Jesse.
Oh yeah. Wait, I thought least likely would probably be me, actually.
Nah.
No.
Oh,
No.
great! Thanks, guys.
No, you. I feel
We've
Mark
seen
could push you
it.
to
We've
that
seen
point.
the anger in your eyes on occasion. It's in there.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen you. We've seen you use caps in the chat.
Okay, so yeah, so Stacy kills her husband. First with a scalpel to the. I will say there's a line here that actually I like that they put it in where Keith says you're beautiful on the inside and the outside, and she looks and says, when you say I'm beautiful on the inside, that means I'm beautiful or I'm ugly on the outside. And that's an argument I've actually seen used a lot of times. Someone says you're so beautiful on the inside, it's like, oh, just say what that actually means. It means I'm ugly. So that line I thought was actually clever right in. But yeah, so and yeah, we get a very weird scene. All of the hollow glow bottles pop open like what's that horror movie? The Stuff?
You're going to make me relive this, aren't you?
It's a little bit like The Stuff. It's a little bit like the eggs popping in the first Ghostbusters movie.
And they ooze out and form into a human-like being who kisses Stacy and then goes upstairs after she kills her husband, goes upstairs, basically deforms itself into the bathtub, and Stacy gets in and just gets completely covered by stuff and emerges as we put supposedly now beautiful.
Yeah, it's like she shedded her skin and became beautiful. I, this was, like I said, this was the bottom episode for me. This was the one that almost I got to this one, and it just felt like I was just trying to drag through it, and I was like, I've got to keep going. I've got to keep going. This is the one that was the hardest for me to push through, and the makeout scene with the lotion was really disturbing to me. And then she came back and she's covered in the lotion, and I just wanted to. I heard Buffalo Bill in the back of my head going, "It puts the lotion on the skin again," and it really disturbed me. So yeah,
How instead of playing a cover of "You Sexy Thing," how appropriate would it have been if it was Wild Horses?
We didn't need that.
For me, this was the bottom tier just because I felt that I have nothing against a story like this having being a metaphor and having a message, but I genuinely felt that this was too ham-fisted because it's obviously a metaphor for the beauty company, the world of beauty as it is. It's like abandon, what what is your true strength, to accept shallow beauty. That's what it comes across as.
sacrifice yourself for beauty is basically what I got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think my biggest problem with this episode is more the pacing. This feels like a 40-minute episode that got extended into an hour. There's just a lot of shots and a lot of sequences that stretch and drag a little bit longer than necessary. So I do wonder if they were hurting a little bit for runtime because it just kind of drags a bit. Credit to the lead actress for, if nothing else in particular, the final bit when she is laughing and kind of everything else fades away and we're just looking at her face for a while. The different emotions she goes through while she's laughing at that at the end there, it's hard to pull that off. So credit to her.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move on. This was your favorite, Robert. So I'm actually going to throw the discussion for you to lead on this one. This is Pickman's Model. It's directed by Keith Thomas, best known as directing. Oh God, the remake of Firestarter. Jesus, dude, we're not against you.
No, I was shocked when I got done with I didn't look up any of the directors beforehand, apart from the only one I recognized was Jennifer Kent, who directs episode 8 and famously directed the Babadook, but we'll get to that. I got done with this episode, and I'm a big fan of the works of H.P. Lovecraft. And Pickman's Model is an interesting little short story. I was curious how they were going to adapt it because it certainly doesn't lend itself to something about an hour long. So some of the changes they made worked very well. I was very impressed with this. And I looked up the director afterwards, like, okay, here's all the different directors kind of going through in preparation. Like, he did the 2020, like the most recent Firestarter movie, which Mark and I roundly dumped on.
As it deserved.
Because it sucks. It's a terrible movie. I had to wonder, like, how can you possibly, like, you're good. Like, there's a lot of good stuff here. How'd you do that? It doesn't make sense. So Pickman's Model follows primarily we meet first an aspiring artist played by the great Ben Barnes, who is a wonderful actor.
Mm-hmm. Insanely good looking too.
And British. Because apparently that matters. He's an art student at Miskatonic University and a very accomplished one. There's a new student that kind of gets introduced to one of his classes, played by Crispin Glover, who is wonderfully creepy.
Does the most over-the-top New England accent I have ever heard. There were times I thought he was going full Cockney. It was so strong.
It really, that's one of the things I loved about this episode in particular, because one of the things we complained about Midnight Club was there's no concession in the language being used to the different time period. And everyone in this episode leans into the, not just New England accent, but they lean into the New England accent and the style of speech that was appropriate for the 1920s, which is a very unique kind of speech pattern. And everyone goes with it, and it works. Again, it works very, very well. So again, we're introduced to Crispin Glover's character, last name of Pickman, who's another aspiring artist, and he makes disturbing art. Whereas Ben Barnes is a very talented kind of classical artist. Pickman makes very kind of ghoulish, very grotesque, but very powerful pieces. And he kind of Ben Barnes kind of sticks up for Pickman a couple of times and loosely befriends him. And Pickman shows him some of his unpublished, for want of a better expression, work. One of which, and this is a really hard thing to convey, and I think they did the best job they could here. One of Lovecraft's themes, of course, is things that shouldn't exist.
That's what I was saying. I was thinking the same thing. Lovecraft has a tendency to write stuff like a horror that drives men mad, and obviously you can't really describe that. So how do you capture that in film? And I thought the way they did that, especially that scene where they've got the lamp swinging, so you've got the light kind of changing on the finish of the paint,
and the it's obviously CGI'd, but they do a great job of conveying the impression of the painting moving. And again, obviously it's an effect where they digitally create something that they can move. But they do enough kind of cutting back and forth between the painting and Barnes, and you've got Glover's weird kind of narration going over it, and it genuinely does come across as disturbing, and they actually do a decent job of conveying that effect to the audience. So Ben Barnes is, again, very disturbed by this. We wind up flashing forward several years to Barnes being an accomplished artist and I believe a curator at a museum.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Museum, gallery, something like that.
Yeah, he's married, he's got a kid, but he's still kind of haunted by what Pickman showed him and what that has started him that kind of pulled the veil back about some of the darker corners of reality, and he can see things now that he does not wish to see. There are little creatures that will occasionally follow him around or that he catches out of the corner of his eye. And he's very disturbed by all of this, and he's trying to move on with his life. And then Pickman is set to be featured as part of an exhibition. And this freaks him out naturally because, again, he was wildly freaked out by what he saw. Pickman comes over to his house, meets his wife and kid. Is still creepy because he's Crispin Glover.
Yeah.
Sorry, Crispin Glover has two settings: Back to the Future and creepy.
That's it. He's either goofy or he's creepy. And occasionally both. Looking at you, Charlie's Angels. So Barnes winds up trying to shut down this exhibition. Pickman brings him back to his house and wants to demonstrate some of what he's been working on and where he gets his inspiration from and whatnot. He talks about the history of his family, so we naturally get some of the Atavastic horror that Lovecraft was fond of. And he kills Pickman in what he believes to be self-defense, as he's losing his mind a little bit as they go down into this basement. And Pickman just wants to show him something in a case, and Barnes has a gun because of, that actually does make sense. And he shoots him, and kills him, and in response to fresh blood being spilled, out of a kind of collapsed well in the corner of this basement comes a nightmare entity that feeds on human flesh and drags the body back down. Barnes, unhappy, like, I'm done with this, burns the house.
Yeah.
Burns the work and goes to the gallery and is nope, we're not doing any of this. Stop it.
Finds out his assistant apparently tried to claw his eyes out.
Yeah, he gets to the gallery and we get a little bit of like Event Horizon vibes here. Yeah, his assistant clawed out his eyes. His wife and son were stuck staring at one of the paintings for a while, and he sent them home, hoping to kind of intercept that before it took hold. Unfortunately, took hold a little bit too much. He goes back home, finds his wife having gouged her eyes out, peacefully cooking dinner, because there's set to be a feast with some of the kind of otherworldly, eldritch, demonic abominations that are trying to get through into the world. And, of course, the main course is going to be their son, whose body is in the oven being cooked. This is my favorite. This is one of the better adaptations of Lovecraft's work. Now, the original Pickman's model doesn't, because it's so much shorter, it deals primarily with an artist that again has kind of the same setup where his material is very disturbing and very kind of graphic and gaudy, but the function the kind of logic that drives the horror in this one is Pickman's not pulling these things from his imagination. He has a trap door in his basement that leads down to the underground tunnels of the troglodytes, and he feeds them corpses and then draws what he sees. So that's some of what gives his material its power. And that story ends with Pickman being consumed by them while they're down there because of reasons. And again, it's left much more eerily. This one dovetails a little bit more into some of the more supernatural stuff. A little bit more of the kind of cosmic horror element of it. And it's carried by some genuinely great acting, and Ben Barnes is a fabulous actor. Crispin Glover is a very good actor, especially in this kind of role. Everyone commits to what's going on here. It's creepy. It does a great job of conveying madness to the viewer in ways that I think a lot of movies that touch on the same stuff struggle to. But it does a really good job with that. I have very, very few complaints about this episode. This was a home run for me.
Yeah, this was on my upper tier. It wasn't my favorite, but it was in my top 3. Simply because of the aesthetics, the tone of everything, and the stylization of how it was conveyed was really appeasing to me, and that's something that I'm really a stickler for. I can watch a movie, and if the tone's out of whack, it kind of takes me out of the moment. I'm really one that goes with settings and stuff to like be fully immersed into it. This I was invested. The ending was something that completely caught me off guard.
I love that shot too, the way they shoot the ending sequence, because
Yes.
our camera is set inside the oven, and so the light that comes in is from Ben Barnes lowering the oven door, and
the flames at the bottom.
Yeah,
very symbolic.
And all we see is the silhouette of the body. So all we see is like the head mostly.
Yeah, it's pretty much just like the head in the oven.
Yeah, and it's more horrifying because it leaves so much of everything else that's in there to your imagination. It's all in darkness, but there's also no question about what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and like I said, the ending was a home run for me, mainly because that last shot, that last sequence is he's coming in and his wife is making dinner, and he's very consoling and everything, and being like just carrying on a normal conversation like you would, and then you see the reveal, and you kind of it's like one of those kind of takes you a step back, and then it just progressively gets worse until you see that last shot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really nice kind of subtle thing they do with the audio in that sequence, because she's cutting up vegetables and whatnot on a cutting board.
Well, I think it's supposed to sound like vegetables, but when they pan it, or you see blood oozing, and I actually got a Color Out of Space reference there with the mother when she chops off her fingers.
Yeah, that definitely happened in the movie there. Yeah, but she's chopping, and when she stops, when you see her arms stop moving, you still hear that. You still hear the sound, and that's the blood that's kind of running down her face from her removed eyes,
Mm-hmm.
that is dripping down and pooling at her feet. And that is one of those rare scenes that it starts out looking so normal, but something's wrong.
Yeah.
And you can't put your finger on it until you rewatch it.
Around, you're like, there's a reason she's not turning around. There's a reason she's not saying something. What the hell's going on?
Right.
All right, we're going to move on to Dreams in the Witch House. This was directed by Catherine Hardwicke, also known as the director of 13, Lords of Dogtown, The Nativity Story, and the first Twilight movie.
Which kind of surprised me that this was one of those.
Well, look, if you're curious about why a talented director was on that, feel free to look up some of the backstory and some of the behind the scenes stuff about the first Twilight movie. There was a pretty serious power struggle between the director and Stephanie Myers that was kind of going on for a lot of that one.
Yeah. So, Jason, you said this one was your favorite. This is also based on a short story by H.P. Lovecraft, like the previous one. Uh,
This one's a lot looser in adaptation. This is
Yeah.
like the name and the fact that there's a house. Like
all
there's
right. I
nothing
am
else in
going
common.
to throw to you then. I want you
Yeah.
to go ahead and lead the discussion on this one.
All right. So this one was my favorite simply because, like I said, the aesthetics and stuff. You're introduced to this set of twins very early on, boy girl twins, and the sister has died, and he is having a conversation with her spirit per se, and she could see her body, and all of a sudden you see something grab her, drag her away, and she gets dragged into this forest. Then you fast forward several years, and we get Ron Weasley, who does a absolute phenomenal job in this. Um, getting getting in there, Rupert Grint, which is, like I said, most famously known as Ron Weasley from the Harry Potter series. He has basically abandoned everything in life to try to find a way to bring his sister back. He's part of the paranormal society that he's trying to convince that there's a way to bring back. He ends up in a pub late one night talking to a gentleman. He kind of overhears the conversation. You know, he's kind of on that fringe of is he grounded in reality, or is he, is he completely off his rocker? So the gentleman says, I can do this. It takes him outside. They meet out in the alley. Presents an option of some psychedelics to be able for him to quote unquote walk through worlds and find his sister and bring her back. It's called Black Gold, I think is what
it was something gold.
Liquid
gold.
Liquid gold. Thank you, Robert. So he takes this hallucinogen. He goes to this other world, finds his sister, and the one rule is you do not create ripples. Ripples are basically anything changes. You can go, but do not change anything. It has dire effects. So he goes, he sees it, he contacts his best friend, his partner, and he tries to convince him that they have to do this. They have to do this. He found a way. He's going to bring her back. The friend thinks he's finally has absolutely gone into madness, denies it, tells him there's no way, tells him he's crazy, which leads to him getting kicked out of the paranormal society. So he goes back and does it again. This time he sees a painting, a lady doing a painting, and she runs away. He sees the painting. It's of the witch house that we become familiar with later on. And he sees his sister. They bond. He gets woken up, and as in Nightmare on Elm Street, if you're holding something when you wake, you bring it back into the normal world. He has a piece of her nightgown because she's still the same age and wearing the same attire that when she passed away. So this convinces him even more. He seeks out this witch house, goes to stay. Some creepy shit happens. He's laying there, he's examining the house.
If the second episode didn't give you a thing for rats, this one might.
No kidding.
Rats yeah, this is where this is where I thought the second episode would go. So you're introduced to the witch and a minion. I'm going to say it's a minion because
I think it's familiar.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, and you're introduced to this witch, which is basically a female group that has went evil. And she is trying to get brought back. We come to find out that she had died in the house, and she's actually in the attic with her familiar minion, which is a rat with a human face. That absolutely horrified me and will be the reason I can't sleep tonight, because we said rats are fear inducing. A human face on a rat is nightmare inducing. So we go through this.
Oh, but he's got such a cute little accent, hasn't he?
I still
So
can't believe that was DJ Quayle's doing the voice of the rat.
yeah, that is crazy. You know, he gives you the crazy eyes from the new guy. But you know, fast forwarding through that, but he sees this picture. He finds he goes across. I think it's across the hall, and the artist is actually with the painting across the hall. He um after he brings his sister back, they go across the hall. They find her because this witch is now chasing them because she wants brought back. And the key to this, you later find out, is twins. One that has passed, one that is living, and this is key. And it kind of starts spiraling to this really weird, psychedelic, like horror in my eyes, because it's the witch is brought back. When he brings the sister back, he brings the witch back with him and the familiar that we later find out. And the artist, just like in the previous, her paintings predict moments of the future. And she tells him, "You're going to die before sun comes up." They think they are under this church. They think they banished this witch. There's a struggle. The witch tries to kill him. The sister shows up, as you do, stabs the witch in her eye with her wand, with the elder wand. She dies. They think they're all in the clear. And then the greatest part of this is they go up to the attic. They find the witch's body, and they find this case. This case has the familiar, which is the rat with the human face. And you're like, okay, this is weird. And why this is going on, the Rupert, which I can't remember his name
Walter.
right now. Walter is laying in bed and has a chest bursting scene on level with Alien of this rat who has been restored to the mortal world. And the thing runs away. They think they chased it away. They're trying to get a doctor because he has this huge gaping hole in his chest.
Of course, he can be saved.
Yeah, and this is the late 1800s, early 1900s. I think it was like 1920s, maybe in that 1920s era there. That medicine can heal a gaping hole in your chest. But the most interesting part of this is when the familiar runs away. They leave the room. You just see him reappear, crawl back up the bed, go back into his chest, and basically assume his body as basically a reborn abomination. And because he says, I can use the body now because he was never using it. Because once he lost his sister, he basically gave up on life. And you just see this total change in the demeanor. Once he leaves the house, he finds something. He puts on an ascot to cover up the gaping hole in his chest, and he goes out into the world to create havoc. And it just leaves you on this note, like an unanswered question of like what comes next. And I love that about this story. That's why I bumped it up to my favorite. And I'm curious what you guys have to say about it.
I mostly just couldn't stop laughing at the fact that it's like, oh, Ron Weasley can never escape magic wands and rats. He's cursed.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah,
Seriously, though, Rupert Grint is
Revenge
really, really great in this.
Revenge of Scabbers.
No, Rupert Grint is great in this. You feel his passion, his fear. He cut the. I love the opening scene, or not the opening scene, but the scene where he and his friend are watching this medium, and he thinks for a split second it's real, and then he walks back, and it's like, of course, it's fake. But he has this desperation to his performance. You see this in so many people that it's like they've lost everything and they're willing to believe what anyone will sell them if it means they can find the answer they're looking for. And he plays that really well. You feel so genuinely sorry for him. He's not an idiot. He's a little foolish, but he's traumatized by what happened to his sister. He's never been able to heal from his grief. And he carries that weight with him. And Rupert Grint gives that performance so well.
Yeah, there's a somewhat heartbreaking moment in this episode. I think it's the second time he goes back to see his sister. And she just asks him something kind of innocuous about his life. Like, it's been so long. Did you ever get into the
sympathy?
Yeah, because he was a piano player. And it's like, did you join the symphony? And he basically says, I've stopped playing when you died.
And it's just this really nice little moment of, he kind of has to realize, he realizes the cost of everything he's done. Like, I gave up everything that I wanted to do in my life to chase this. And it's a nice little reminder to all of us who get stuck in grief from time to time. If you could talk to that person again, which is one of the things we all kind of desire out of that, what would you say? Like, they'd ask about what you've been doing. And if you don't have a good response to that, that's a pretty damning indictment. And so you did get that nice little moment there. I like the creature design on the witch. I thought that was, again, well enough. I mean, we joke about it, being Groot-like, but and it is. But there's enough root and other kind of arborist imagery that goes into this one.
Root.
The eyes is what haunted me of this creature.
And then we already mentioned it enough, but the design on our little rat fellow with the human
Jenkins
face.
Brown. I think he was actually called Brown Jenkins in the original short story. They changed it to Jenkins Brown.
Might have been. Again, the short story in question bears very little resemblance to this story.
Although the rat humanoid creature bursting out of his chest, I think, was in the short story.
I'd have to double check, but again, that might have been.
Because I know the character was in the short story, because they actually they talk about finding his skeleton, and now that's apparently on display in Miskatonic University.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They've got... that's one of those universities. You got to be careful if you decide you want to go there, because they got some stuff.
I want a shirt that says I went to the Miskatonic University Art School now. It's like, I didn't know they had an art school at Miskatonic. Now I want to wear that shirt, say that's where I went to art school.
I've got one that is Miskatonic University alumnus.
Well, what does your shirt that you're wearing now say?
Again, this is the Esoteric Order of Explorers. With, what's the bottom thing on this say? Expeditions from the South Pacific to the Antarctic.
Not coming back from the Antarctic, that's for damn sure.
Again, Cthulhu's Island is in the South Pacific, in a very specific location, and the Antarctic is where Shoggoths exist. So yeah, just stay away from those places.
Why does it not surprise me that you know where Cthulhu's Island specifically is?
It was... You want to know what's really kind of freaky about that? You might remember this, but a few years ago they had that weird phenomena that was observed in the ocean, the audiological phenomenon. They called it the bloop.
Yeah.
They traced that thing's origin to relatively close to where Lovecraft fictionally set the island of Rillier. I'm just saying.
Cthulhu, if you're out there, could you just show up and start the freaking apocalypse already? We're getting tired of waiting.
Again, weirdness, but yeah, that's me. But yeah, we do know, relatively speaking, where that is because Lovecraft had the coordinates kind of set down, and if you look at where it is in reality, there's nothing there. It's just empty ocean.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to episode 7, The Viewing, directed by
Oh,
Panos Cosmatos, known for Mandy and Beyond the Black Rainbow. I also like to call this short, For the Love of God, Take This Man's Star Filter Away.
no. It was entirely necessary here here's the only reason this episode works. There's one reason. Because it leans so heavily into being a 70s movie. And I don't just mean a movie set in the 70s. Like, this thing they changed the aspect ratio. It's got the grainier effect on it. It's got enough
The theremin music. So much of this screamed Kubrick. I mean,
this was very grindhousey.
It's got enough lens flare to make J.J. Abrams happy for a couple of minutes.
I said the exact. I'm watching this. I'm like, did the dude just watch the 2009 Star Trek and say, I could top that?
But all of this very much like, again, this is not just a movie set in the 70s. This tries to be a movie that looks like it was made in the 70s. And that's what, like, that whole aesthetic, that whole commitment to it is what makes this thing work. More so than certainly anything else that goes on in it, because apart from that kind of gimmick, there's not a lot here.
See, I have minor astigmatism. It really only pops up at night when I'm driving. But watching all that lens flare of every single light was giving me the worst headache. I kept rubbing my eyes, because like you do when you're driving and you start seeing the stars around the light poles. Oh my God, it was so headache inducing. But yeah, this is a very bizarre short because not really a lot happens. This is an original story from Cosmatos and Aaron Stewart on. We have 4 guests who are invited to the home of a wealthy recluse, Lionel Lassiter, played by RoboCop himself, Peter Weller. Always fun to see him on screen. We have an astrophysicist named Charlotte. We have an author named Guy. We have a psychic named Targ. And we have a musician named Randall.
It's nice to see Diebeard back.
Oh, Steve. Yeah, Steve Agee. Yeah. From Peacemaker. Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't recognize him.
Take the glasses off and suddenly everything changes.
Yeah. Maybe it's because this one he has all the confidence in the world and his dye beard. He just is so... I'll give actually credit to his ability as an actor then for playing those 2 characters so differently. Because his role here as the author is nothing like Diebeard.
Not a darn thing.
Yeah, so these 4 people are picked up in a van by this other guy who they take to this house, which has very unique architecture, never seen before by anyone else. Lassiter tells them, apparently the guy who built the house, the guy who composed the music that they're listening to, works solely for him now. Talks about how he collects people. For him, it's not just that they're exclusive, it's that they're his, and they will never create for anyone else ever again. And
like the super wealthy do.
And we get a very weird scene. I did not get how this worked, but they sit down and all 4 of their favorite drinks are waiting there. To the point that Randall, who's played by Eric Andre, who I thought did a really good job with this, says it's his favorite flavor tea, it's his favorite temperature of tea, and it's his favorite amount of honey in the tea. It's like there's specific and then there's this. And they never explain how Lassiter was able to get exactly what they would want for their drinks.
Well, how I took that is these people were specifically chosen. So he done his research. He was a philanthropist. I can't say it. A wealthy individual that is not used to being told no. So he done his due diligence. He probably hired a private investigator because these people were specifically chosen to be there. There wasn't just randomness, that they were specifically chosen to be a part of this. So I think that's it. And it was kind of the part for them to get their comfort level for what's about to happen. And so he wanted to make sure that he had everything in place to make them as comfortable as possible with what was about to be discussed.
So yeah, they get their favorite drinks, then they pass it around to Jay, and then they do what Guy refers to as space cocaine.
Yeah.
I feel like that. Okay, this is a really obscure reference, but that's the nickname for a very specific utility item in the first Darkest Dungeon game, in like the second expansion. You get crystals that are from a comet that is actually like home to some terrible entity that will have, because Darkest Dungeon is very Lovecraftian inspired. But what this item in theory, what it does is you consume it and it refreshes limited use abilities. And you
so
can
it's
use this
spice from Dune.
something like that. And you can cheese a few different fights with this, including the final boss fight, actually. But the joke is, you have exhausted your usage, and then you do space cocaine, and suddenly you're energized again.
So yeah, it's basically like high quality Peruvian cocaine mixed with something that this doctor who's with them, played by Sofia Botella, puts on top of it that she says she developed. And so much of this movie is just these 6 people sitting in one of those sunken conversation pits that were all the rage in the 70s, which frankly I think need to come back, because I've always thought those were cool as hell.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
the ability to very quickly get into cover if someone starts shooting does seem to be useful.
Way to completely dampen the conversation, Robert.
Hey, look, I look for cover wherever I go. What do you want me to say? Gears of War taught me that.
Lord. So yeah, so they get their favorite drinks. They're high on weed. They're high on coke. They're just talking. They're not even talking about anything specific. They're just talking. There's a brief bit where the doctor mentions that she worked for Muammar Gaddafi. But that doesn't go anywhere. And then finally, Lassiter says he's there to show them something, and he leads into this other room where there's this statue stone thing.
Meteor, chrysalis, not quite sure.
No idea. And he says, and yeah, they ask all these questions about it, and I guess it reacts to their presence, and it starts.
Look, Eric Andre blows smoke in its face, and it takes offense.
As you do.
I mean,
unless you're Johnny Knoxville. And
confirmed, Space Aliens, not Johnny Knoxville.
I need to start watching Reboot. I'm pretty good in that. So it starts emitting this noise, and then suddenly we get half scanners, half Raiders of the Lost Ark, and
all kinds of appropriately horrifying.
Very. And the astrophysicist and the musician manage to get out and flee.
The rock crumbles and orange goo comes out.
Mm-hmm.
With tentacles.
Yep. I thought those were horns at first until they started moving.
Yeah.
They had this, when they merged at the top, they looked very Demon's Horns-esque.
And then they quickly turn into tentacles, and then the goop jumps on him, and it turns him into Nemesis, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. There is no other way to put it.
Second Resident Evil reference. I love it.
And it just sort of ends with the monster getting loose in 70s, somewhat city. I don't know where the hell these people are. And Randall and Charlotte just getting away in, I'm assuming that was Lassiter's sports car. Just being like, what the hell just happened back there? And it ends.
Yeah. If you've seen Mandy, and if you haven't, please do. It's utterly bonkers. There's a scene where Nicolas Cage and another guy sword fight with chainsaws. Just to give you a taste of the insanity of that particular film. It is
If it was
sounds
any other
interesting.
actor than Nicolas Cage, I would have said, what?
Nicolas Cage, yeah.
That sounds like actually interesting.
It is it's a kind of psychedelic acid heavy metal horror. It's out there.
You watch that and it's not surprising why he would do Color of Out of Space.
Yep. Very, very different. I really appreciate that movie. Like that movie has aged very well. The more I think about Color Out of Space, but
Oh, I love that movie. I got to see that on a very small indie theater, and not gonna lie, the scene with the son and the mother merging together. Oh my god, that scared the shit out of me.
But yeah, again, I think this movie lives and dies by the gimmick of trying to appear as a relic of the 70s. The acting's all fine enough, but again, there's not a lot that goes on here until the end when things go way crazy for just a little bit. I kept waiting for there to be a giant car crash to kill the astrophysicist and the musician at the end. It's that kind of movie. You kind of expect that. So this almost feels like this one might get, if they do a second season of this anthology, and they should, for the record.
Yes, I don't know who needs to hear this. We want this to come back. We want this to be an annual Halloween tradition.
This almost feels like if any of these are going to get a kind of almost direct sequel, this is the one that might do it.
As long as they take away his lens flare.
We might get more of this kind of direct/indirect story, because this was very open-ended, more so than any of the others.
Open-ended ends. I don't call it open-ending or open-ended. I just feel like it stopped. It doesn't feel like there was
it was
it doesn't feel like there was a giant question mark at the end going like, what will happen next? It literally feels like we're out of budget. Cut.
Yeah, because it ends like with a rolling blackout. It's set in California, and it's set like it just ends with him coming out of a storm drain, and it looks like a rolling blackout happens.
Well, he has those weird electrical powers, so he comes out and is like near a power station, I think, and he kind of like zaps it.
So he's Electro.
Something like that.
Okay.
He's gooey Electro.
More charisma than much more charisma than Jamie Foxx, though.
And probably better teeth.
He's Electro after a trip to Orange Julius.
Okay.
Yeah, that tracks.
Okay, so yeah, the final one here is The Murmuring. This is directed by Jennifer Kent, best known for her directorial debut, The Babadook. This one follows a pair of married ornithologists. I'm just going to call them bird scientists, because that's what they are. I am not going to trip over this word countless times.
Ornithologists.
Bird people. Bird scientists.
They're engaged in ornithological studies.
I hate you so much. Anyway, so
I love dinosaurs as a kid. You get more familiar with how to pronounce Latin stuff that way.
Fair enough. Okay, so they're doing a scientific study on bird murmurations. They're also recovering from grief, as we find out progressively. We start at the beginning. We find out that they have gone through a horrible tragedy, and we find out later they lost their daughter, Ava. They never say how old Ava was. We have a brief scene of her with a baby. I don't know if that means that Ava died as a baby or that was just, what she saw. Because these two are a little bit older, so I would assume Ava was a little older when she died. But either way, so they go to this remote country home. They think they're just going to an island and they're going to sleep in their tents, but it turns out there's a home there, and the groundskeeper has arranged for them to stay there. And it's a really nice house, but things start to get weird, and we see Nancy, one of the bird scientists, starts seeing and hearing a crying boy. And she can't figure out exactly what's going on. And then she starts seeing and hearing a woman screaming, "What have you done?" And she tries to talk about it with her husband, who doesn't hear or see this. And it's clear that Jennifer Kent has a method with her filmmaking that we saw with the Babadook, and we see it here. The idea of using the supernatural to explore and come to terms with your grief.
Yes. It's
And
very heavy in this one.
very heavy, but it was also very symbolic in the Babadook and what that creature represented. And we get that here because Nancy and her husband fight so much when she's trying to get him on her side about what's going on. And he quickly points out she's never really fully grieved for their daughter. You know, she doesn't want to talk about it. She's very closed off. She's holding, holding all this sadness inside. And I'm not going to say that's right or wrong. Everyone grieves differently. So it's very rough for her. And she finally gets some closure when she embraces the ghost of the boy who's very scared. His mother drowned him in a bathtub and then she killed herself. And she's able to help the ghost of the boy essentially come out of the darkness, as it were. I guess he kind of finds peace. And this allows her to finally open up to her husband and say she wants to talk about their daughter and what happened. So this is not a classic. This is not scary on the same level as the other shorts that we have seen on this show.
It's not scary even the way the Babadook was. The Babadook is if you've never seen it, watch that in the dark the first time through, it will scare the crap out of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And remember, and don't get too attached to the dog. It breaks one of the few cardinal rules of horror movies.
Yeah, it does. That's not just a rule for horror movies. Like, I think one of my favorite gags, I forget where I heard this. No, I remember. This is in a book. It's in an Iris Johansen novel. I believe it's called The Ugly Duckling, actually, if my memory serves. I haven't read the thing in years. I hate my memory sometimes. A hitman is scolded pretty violently by his employer because he killed a child in the course of executing a job. And his employer tells him, "You were in America. You went to America to kill people. You don't kill kids and you don't kill dogs. They won't care. Just don't do those two things." The kid was not the target. It was collateral damage. And he is violently kind of, you're in the United States. Like other places in the world, these rules are not the same. The United States, you don't kill kids, you don't kill dogs. And you're good.
I've seen a meme where they joke about people who watch horror movies or just violent movies in general. It's like watching 100 people get hacked to death with a saw. It's like, no big deal. Sees a dog get kicked. You bastard!
Yep.
It's just like, yeah, we have our limits.
Well, look, there's a reason we all are on John Wick's side.
Yeah. Season 4 or chapter 4 John Wick trailer dropped today. Looks good. We get to see Keanu Reeves fight Donnie Yen. Yeah, I'm geeking.
Yeah, that'll be something. This movie it's a lot more kind of a classic Gothic ghost story in its structure. Full credit in the world to both Essie Davis, who I think a lot of us kind of became exposed to during the Babadook, but Andrew Lincoln bringing his more dramatic chops here. If you're only familiar with him from The Walking Dead, he gets to show off a little bit more of what he's capable of here. And you know what? I'm credit to this entire series for giving us another instance of the husband not being a raging jackass.
Yeah, he is incredibly supportive. It's clear that he has processed his grief and he's ready to move on. And again, everyone grieves differently. We all grieve at different stages and we all grieve on different, periods of time. And he wants to open back up to his wife and he wants things to try to get back to the way they are. There's a really adorable scene where he puts on some music and he starts trying to dance with her, and these two are so freaking cute together.
Yes.
But she doesn't want to dance and you could tell he's frustrated, but at no point does he threaten to leave her or belittle her. He talks to her and he's mad at her about what happened, but he never talks down to her.
The scene where he says, "I want this to work." It's genuine. Like he's not saying if you don't move on, I'm going to leave you. It's more, we've been here for a while and this is not sustainable. And he's just acknowledging that. Like, we can't keep doing this. And so what are we going to do here? I still love you. I still want this to work. And he kind of leaves the ball in her court in that respect, but it's never, again, like when he wants to be, physically intimate with her, it's not, again, this is not the kind of what would in other ways come across as like creepy or pushy. He absolutely, when she stops things, he respects that.
Yeah.
And his frustration is not selfish. Like, he's not frustrated because I'm not getting what I want. He's frustrated for their relationship, and he's frustrated for her. Like, he kind of knows that, like, you do need to grieve somehow, and we've reached a very unhealthy point in this where you are stuck. And whatever comes next, okay, but you can't stay stuck like this. And it's a very human thing, and their last fight, like when she kind of goads him into being mad at her, again, the acting from both parties is very, very good. You get a couple of decent jump scares. I mean, the ghost mother coming out of the dark from the dark doorway, it's somewhat predictable, but it's still somewhat effective. And it's more, again, this is a lot more kind of most ghost stories, the good ones are tragedies at their core.
Right.
And this one leans into that fairly effectively. So I'm kind of surprised Jennifer Kent doesn't do more, like, because again, for those of us that saw the Babadook and whatnot, she just hasn't done a whole lot since. She did something somewhat recently that's a bit more of a period piece about one of the slave islands in Australia.
Let's see here, The Nightingale.
Yeah, is that's something. That is not for the faint of heart. That's a lot. That's not really. There's not really a supernatural aspect to that. A lot of the horror in that is just, hey, let's kind of accurately describe things and the effects they have on people in this time and place. And yeah, that'll do it. But she hasn't gone on to do a tremendous amount. This is a solid episode. Like, it's a strong way to end this. It's a strong way to end season 1.
And like we said, this is season 1. I can't find anything that says they're doing a second season. I really hope that this becomes a October staple, that Netflix does a handful of these with a bunch of different directors. We've seen, like I said, we got some amazing work from very talented directors, many of whom, we've seen a few things from, a handful we've never seen anything from. And I really want this to continue. I think this is a very, very clever idea.
And Netflix, set whoever done Midnight Club down. Let them watch this and show them this is what everybody expected out of Midnight Club. This last episode,
Flanagan, we've warned you. You can mess up 90s young adult adaptations. You mess up Edgar Allan Poe, and there will be hell to pay.
Yeah. The best part of this was children are creepy. Children are scary. That's why I would really like a really good adaptation of Children of the Corn to come out.
Oh, come on. You don't get down with Outlander, We Have Your Woman?
Oh, God, no.
Oh, come on. The guy who played Isaac is freaking amazing. I love him. He still does horror conventions.
Yeah. But the original Children of the Corn, it worked because children are creepy. Children are scary.
That's why that's more why Village of the Damned works. Bear in mind, the original much more so than the remake.
Right.
The remake, I think the only thing the remake has going for it isn't Christopher Reeve in the remake?
Yeah, oh god, that's the one with Kirstie Alley.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Christopher Reeve was a very good actor. Like, everyone remembers him as Superman. Christopher Reeve was a legitimately talented actor.
I still loved his appearance on The Muppet Show when he got to do Hamlet.
Oh, it was so good.
It was hilarious. Like, oh, you'll have to wear tights. Wouldn't be the first time.
He graduated from Juilliard with Robin Williams, if memory serves. They were very good friends.
Yeah. But yeah, the aspect of and this is something that worked for Haunting the Hill House too, is the creepy kid aspect. Had Amber on the edge of her seat, where she has told me and texted me multiple times that she will not be going to sleep tonight, and I am she is thankful that I will be staying up with her, to which I replied, nope, I'm taking my medicine. You're on your own.
Oh, ow, dude.
And she said, haha, you're recording. I've hid your medicine. I said, I hate you. So,
bravo, honey, bravo. I applaud
yeah.
you.
So
One wife to another.
That's a look into what I have to look forward to tonight.
Healthy marriages, the other hallmark of the Radulich Broadcasting Network.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Single,
this,
for the record.
This was a good note to end on, because it kind of gave you that plateau of just bringing you down, giving you that nice plateau, feel good retribution story, and didn't because I felt like every episode you was on a roller coaster. Some episodes had you really high, and then you had that log going down, and then you popped up, and this was one really even kill one that we ended on that I think was the right decision, because you take away something, a human feeling of grief, and how people process it, and how the different stages of grief happen. I lost my mother recently, and one of the things that I've been told is, well, you haven't grieved. And my response is, how can you tell me how I feel? And how can you tell me how I'm dealing with stuff? You don't see things from my perspective. You don't look at the world through the eyes I do. And I haven't fully grieved. I'm still working through that. Hence, medication and therapy. But it's the fact that losing you're, as a parent, you're never supposed to bury your child. That is something that weighs on any parent's mind. Even if you have fur babies, it weighs on you. If you lose an animal that's a part of your family, that's still a part of you that's going to be missing. And a lot of people may look down at that. I don't. I'm a very predominant fur baby family, and I respect people that have fur babies, because they are integrated into your life. For a little bit, my youngest boxer was bought for me for my grieving process. That's how we ended up with her, for me to cope with the loss of my mother. So dealing with that as a parent puts you in a weird flux, like a purgatory of emotions. Some people never get out of that. Some people hold on to that, and they don't know how to process it until years, much later in life. And I think that's what hit home with this, and why I think this was the right episode to end on, because it's something, death is inevitable. It's something that we all have to deal with. And it's something that we all can relate to. And I think that this was very well done to show it's okay to take your time with the grief that you carry. And I'll shut up now, because that was a little long-winded.
It was very well done. Thank you for the insight. You did mention about how good it was they ended with this, and I think you're right. An anthology series has to have the right mix of their story styles. They have to have everything. It's like a mixtape. You have to start out strong, but you can't stay strong the whole time and then go low just at the end because it peters out. This series did a very good job, especially if you binge the whole thing front to back, like I know a lot of us did.
Pretty much.
I got it through it in 2 settings. Would have been a whole one, but I needed sleep. And I think they did a very good job organizing it. Again, this is something that I think we all would love to have come back to Netflix every October. This should be a new Halloween standard. Guillermo del Toro was great. I really enjoyed having him come on and introduce each bit. Again, very, very Alfred Hitchcock's Presents, very Night Gallery-esque.
Yeah.
Which apparently he's a fan of Night Gallery, so kind of
To
makes
the
sense.
shock of no one.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. So really enjoyed this. We really hope this gets picked up first. Again, I don't even know if I want to call it season 2, but just we want it to come back. We want this to be a Halloween standard. I would love for us to be talking about the next wave of the Cabinet of Curiosities in 2013 or 2023.
I was going to say 2013. We're traveling back in time. I love it.
That was a Freudian slip. I was looking at something else on my screen.
Hey,
Sorry.
if we go back 10 years, we all carry the knowledge we have now. We're good.
I know things I can bet on, and I would
Right.
try to lose that 20 pounds a lot faster than I did.
Okay, so if there's, does anyone want to talk about? Was there anything we missed in any of these stories? Is there anything else we want to talk about?
I think I've covered everything I wanted to say about the series.
No, I think I've had everything. Again, they collected a pretty good assortment of directors for this. I think the only little bit of trivia that might be relevant to mention, at least, is Cosmatos is the son of the guy who allegedly directed Tombstone. I say allegedly because if you know the stories about that particular filming process, that movie's basically ghost directed by Kurt Russell.
It's kind of funny you actually bring that up because I just had a funny Tombstone story.
It's on YouTube movies at the moment. Tombstone, it's on YouTube movies at the moment for free.
Yeah, it is. I had never seen that before Friday night.
Great.
Really?
That's a great Western action
Okay,
movie.
no, I think you guys caught I was supposed to go see Voltaire in concert, but
Mhm.
my date, one of my best friends, poor guy had food poisoning. So
Yeah, that sucks.
So we skipped the concert and I stayed at his place with him to help him feel better. And we're watching a bunch of movies and everything. And yeah, he mentions Tombstone's on YouTube movies. I'm like, oh, I've never seen it. He's like, what the hell? So we watch it. And yeah, amazing movie. 2 days later, I'm at the post office mailing stuff. And one of the clerks, you guys know, I'm at the post office weekly. So the clerks there know me. And she mentions like, oh yeah, you mentioned the concert. How was it? And I said, oh no, we didn't end up going. And I tell what happened. It's like, yeah, no, we stayed in and watched Tombstone. It was my first time seeing it. The second clerk literally drops her packages and she's like, you've never seen Tombstone before? It's her favorite movie. And before I know it, half of the post office, because I got a big line of people behind me, start going into freaking Doc Holliday quotes.
It's an eminently quotable movie.
Just like all of a sudden, all I hear is, I'm your Huckleberry. Say when. You're a daisy if you do. Just, oh my God.
I mean, my favorite Doc Holliday quote is actually the most revelatory for that character. And you can't quote it out of context the way you can with other lines of his. But one, Val Kilmer should have been nominated for an Oscar for that performance.
Yes.
Undoubtedly.
I don't know that, again, I'm not sure one. I'd have to double check who else was there that year, but nominated certainly. But my favorite Doc Holliday line is just near the end when he's asked, short of being dead, what the hell are you in this for? And he says, Wyatt Earp is my friend. And I got lots of friends.
I've got lots of friends.
I don't.
That is a great scene.
As someone who does not have a tremendous number of friends, yeah, like if you don't have a lot of friends, I don't. I have a lot of acquaintances, very few friends, and that's just my personality more than me insulting anyone. If I'm your friend and you say, hey, we're going on a revenge kick, I'm there.
Okay, so one of us now needs to go find a reason to type into the chat room with the rest of the recorders. We're going on a revenge kick, and let's just see how fast Robert responds.
Yeah, see which one the emoji gets attached
to. I'm not sure I'm going to give that information away for free.
That's behind the paywall.
Coming soon to our OnlyFans.
Yes,
we need funding, but not that badly.
Well, you'll have to have Mark pitch the OnlyFans idea to you. We discussed, actually, if you go back and listen to our last episode me and Robert was on, it is discussed.
It takes up the first 20 minutes or so of our attempted review of What was that stupid movie?
Which
Pray for the
one?
devil. Pray for the devil.
Pray for the Devil. There's nothing to talk about, so our first like 20 minutes is me mocking Mark's genitals and us discussing the setup for the OnlyFans.
Oh, so it was
Let-
another Pet Cemetery debacle.
Exactly like that.
We even made the reference.
That was the reference made.
Yeah. I said.
Not
'cause we
since
was like,
Not since Pet Cemetery have we been so desperate to talk about anything
Yeah.
other than the movie.
Yeah,
No,
and
I'm officially making that a term when we have to review a movie and we cannot think of anything else to say. I'm calling it another Pet Cemetery debacle.
Pretty much.
Yeah, let's just say that cauliflower comparison was was brought up, and I'm still haunted by it.
God, I need to listen to this.
I stole that from a book I read not too long ago. Actually, but the story in that particular book was it dealt with a lawsuit. It's kind of tangential to it's a footnote in the actual book. But one of the characters had to deal with erectile dysfunction, had surgically implanted pumps put into his penis, so you could then inflate them. Well, apparently he sued because no one told him if you overinflate them, there could be an explosion. And after surgery to try and correct the problem, his genitals were left looking and feeling apparently like a small piece of cauliflower.
And with that note, plugs.
That felt appropriate.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Oh, it was either that or Pinkie Pie with the trombone.
I was going to say, like, since we're talking about sad genitals, the sad trombone would fit much better.
I had no
plugs.
idea which one I wanted to go with.
And
Who wants to
plugs.
do their plugs first and save us from this nightmare?
Go ahead, Robert.
Alrighty. So, if you're interested in my musings on this and other topics, thank you for listening, for the record. You can find me on Damn You Hollywood. This week, this coming Tuesday, we will be discussing Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, and I am not looking forward to that.
Oh, for God's sake. I'm
Hang
looking
on.
forward to it. I want to talk Namor.
Haven't you heard how they pronounce it?
Namor.
It's Namor. You got to roll the R. And they're making a big deal out of it, actually. Like they no, you can't say Namor. It's Namor because everyone must roll their R's now. Whether you're in
I don't care.
Tolkien.
I still want to talk about him. I love this character, and I love what they've done with him.
So we'll be look. Here's my complaints about that movie in a nutshell. Before I've seen it. 1, it's almost 3 hours long. 2, your 2 protagonists are deeply unlikable characters. 3, everyone I know whose opinion I trust, whether I agree with it or not, that has seen it has given it middling reviews. Like my friend Jeff Harris, who reviews stuff for 411 Mania, he gave it a 6 out of 10. I want you to understand that Jeff is not a shill for Marvel, but he definitely errs on the positive side of Marvel. Now, if you're me, and you are me, like I'm not looking forward to this. So, but we will be reviewing it Tuesday on Damn You Hollywood. So we'll come by, listen to. I mean, no critic is going to say a bad thing about this movie for fear of being piled on. So you can't trust the critics on this as a general rule. Whether I like the movie or not, that's my stance on that. So we'll be reviewing that. I cover professional wrestling a few nights a week. AEW's Dark Elevation on Monday. MLW stuff on Thursday. In fact, my MLW review should be live about now. And WWE SmackDown on Fridays. Those are all in the Wrestling Zone at 411mania.com. I cover mixed martial arts for them as well. This coming Saturday, UFC 281, big pay-per-view for them. They're back in Madison Square Garden. We've got 2 title fights, and we've got can't miss fireworks between Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier. So I almost said a different fighter who also was fireworks when he fought both of those guys. If you want a full preview of that event, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. This last week was a review of the utterly banal entry into the UFC Fight Night Pantheon that we got on Saturday and a preview of UFC 281. So listen for that if you're interested in the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Wherever you're listening to this, punch in that into your podcast platform of choice. You can find me over there. And again, I'm here on TV Party on occasion, Damn You Hollywood, which I mentioned. And yeah, that's it. So that's where you can find me as a general rule. My Twitter handle is on the screen. I'm a very innocuous follow on Twitter if you're so inclined.
Hey, at least this time I actually kept the names. I don't know if you guys saw our review that we did earlier this week on House of the Dragon, but I screwed up and had the banner below, so I didn't have the individual names on the windows. I thought I was clicking the one that gives the banner that scrolls at the bottom throughout the whole time with the name with the title of what you're discussing. I clicked the wrong one.
It happens. You can find me over at Mosaic Media MC on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We just dropped the episode earlier today about our mid-season rebuilding. What you should do, anything fantasy football, go over there. Ty does an amazing job with our graphics. Can't say enough about the.
Is your fantasy suggestion get anything related to the Bengals?
No. We actually do. I actually state that you need to trade Jamar Chase right now. But
that's a bold call.
Yeah, if you listen in context of the show, it makes sense. But yeah, Tyler does an amazing job with our graphics. Does the arena football stuff over there. Definitely, if you got time, check out the Instagram, the TikTok. Listen to us. We're across all podcasting platforms. Sundays, you can find me on Twitter under the Mosaic MC banner, live tweeting throughout the day of the football games. And yeah, just if you're into fantasy football, definitely give us a like, listen, and subscribe over there on all of our channels.
All right, as far as my plugs, I will be joining Robert to discuss Wakanda Forever next week. And I was thinking suspicion yet again. I will be the little ray of sunshine coming.
Again, I have negative expectations. We'll see if they are exceeded or not. I haven't seen the movie yet, so if it's really good, I'm happy to say it's really good. I'm just saying I have concerns.
What can I say? I am the sunflower to your nuclear meltdown.
That's about right.
And as far as when I have not sold my soul to Mark Radulich, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We're putting together a bunch of stuff to get online here in the next week because we are getting ready for our Black Friday sale. Everything in both of our Etsy and Handmade at Amazon shops will be 20% off, and every order that is placed from Black Friday to Christmas Eve, for every order placed, we will be donating $5 to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. This is a charity drive we do every year. Really excited to be back with that. We got a ton of stuff. If you are a horror fan like the three of us are, because there's obviously something very wrong with us, we got a ton of really great horror themed jewelry. Among our most popular is our Lament configuration hair barrette, our Room 237 earrings for those who are fans of The Shining. I just also added a pair of new Midsummer earrings. I survived Midsummer, and I was a crappy pair of earrings. They're not crappy. They're actually really good. So we also, another one of our most popular is our choker featuring the cover of the handbook for the recently deceased. I know there's a ton of you Beetlejuice fans out there. So go ahead and take a look. We got a bunch of non-horror stuff, all geeky related. Cannot wait to get this charity drive started. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Under Duress Twitter. That's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. So for Robert and Jason, I am Alexis Hejna saying be well, behave, be safe, and as we have learned in this episode, beware of rats.